Welcome to the Level Up Lifestyle, where we tell the real stories of people who overcame and elevated. In today's episode, Mike sits down with agency owner Amanda Violand. We get to hear how Amanda leveled up to leadership, starting with the work ethic she developed as a farmhand.
It was a way to earn money as a little kid, and I would just save everything.
To the wake-up call she had in New York City.
And I remember leaving that interview being like, you have no idea.
To crafting the philosophy she leads with today.
Just bring out the best in other people and let them find their own path. Pull them, not push them.
All of this coming up next on the Level Up Lifestyle.
Hey, how are you?
I'm good.
Good, have a seat.
Thank you for having me.
All right, thanks for being here and welcome everybody to the Level Up Lifestyle podcast. So, yeah. All right.
What a great group.
Right. So happy to have everybody here. We are, as always, coming to you live from the Globe Life headquarters in McKinney, Texas. And today, it's exciting. This is our third day of a 3-day leadership session. It's called our Globe Life University 101. We've got 120 brand new leaders into the business. We bring them here for 3 days and talk about ways to grow their business, how to be better leaders, equip them with the skills to succeed when they go back. So it's exciting to have everybody here, and they get to hear you. They get to hear your story. How about that?
I'm ready.
All right. Well, Amanda, I appreciate you being here and taking out the time. I know it took some finagling with your schedule to make this work. And so everybody knows you are an agency owner in Tampa, Florida, right? You've been an agency owner for how long?
A year.
Okay.
And going on our 13th, 14th month now.
Okay.
Yeah. We're rocking and rolling.
You are rocking and rolling. You had a great first year and you were taking off. So it's exciting to see your business growing. You've been with the company now for how long?
So Globe Life, 16 years, going on 17 years. I have my anniversary is so easy to remember. It's 8/8 of 08 is when it started.
It's eights.
Yes.
Do you ever if you go to a casino or something, just bet on 8 or, play the Powerball?
I should.
8, right? I mean, it's a lucky number. Yeah. You think about that. But anyway, Amanda, you got a great story. And let's get into it.
Okay.
So let's talk about you. Tell me about your kind of just where you from? What was that like growing up, Amanda?
So I grew up in Ohio in a township called Jackson Township, which is by Akron, Canton. And, it was my sister, myself. My mom was a stay-at-home mom. My dad's an auto body man. He actually still works at a body shop. He's a very hard worker. He's 75 years old, and he is the best metal man in South Florida. That's what his shop owner says.
So he's moved to Florida as well.
Yes.
Get out of the Ohio winters.
Yep.
So it's Jackson Township. That's so it's like a small town?
Yes.
Or town?
Yeah. It's outside, like I said, Akron, Canton, but just a great community. Kind of rural, although it's growing at this point. And I grew up in a neighborhood, but I was surrounded by farms. And we went to church every Sunday. My parents were very supportive. I had a great childhood, but we definitely didn't, I don't come from money. My dad has worked very, very hard his entire life to provide for our family, which I'm so grateful for. And, which I know I've shared, about my mom, budgeting. And she used to take my dad's paychecks and cash them and put them in envelopes and taught us how to budget and be money conscious and all of these.
So you're seeing this at a young age.
Yes.
Yeah. Was there ever a moment where you kind of realized, okay, your dad's really hardworking, the value of the dollar, that kind of all coming together at a young age?
Yes. I was always a saver. My dad used to take me, this is kind of going back into memories, but he would take me because he would fix crashed cars and he would flip cars too, and to make extra money. And I would be really little and I would go to junkyards and we would buy headlights and side mirrors and things, and I would sell them in the classifieds.
Really?
As a little kid. And my dad.
How old are you when this is going on?
I mean, I don't even know, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old. And he would let me keep a lot of that money.
Really?
And so I would save it. Yeah.
Okay. So you're learning how to earn at a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And so he's like doing the car flipping like on the side.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
You have to hold the flashlight in the garage, that whole.
He forced me to learn how to change oil.
Okay.
He was like, you will learn how to do this and change a tire and all that. Yes, I did all of that.
Well, that's good. Good.
I haven't done that in a long time, but yes, he definitely taught me those skills.
If you have to, right?
Yes,
It's,
just in case.
That skill's there. So growing up, obviously sports played a big part of your life later on. We'll get to that. So you're young, learning the value of work ethic and these things. You're seeing it from your parents firsthand. You're experiencing it. Was there, a moment where you started getting into sports, or you started to get into kind of your interests and developing who you are? What was that like?
Yeah. So before sports, like I was saying, we lived in a neighborhood and I was surrounded by farms. There was a lady, and she's like a second parent to me, and she's still like, I love her to death. Her name's Janet. But she had a farm with
She might be listening. You say hi to Janet.
Yes. Hi, Janet. Yeah. I hope you do. She was a huge influence on my life, but I was a little kid and I loved horses, and she had horses. She had goats, chickens, all kinds of things. And like every day after school, I would go to her farm and help her, and I would do barn work and I would do all kinds of things. And she would, it was a way to earn money as a little kid. And I would just save everything. And my dream was I wanted to buy a horse and have one of my own.
Wow.
They're
not cheap,
years.
by the way.
No, they're not.
Yeah.
No. And so I saved up, and I remember her having a conversation with my dad about and this was, I was starting to get older. If I would help with barn work, I could keep my horse there. And so I took all that money that I saved and I had a horse, and that was like a dream come true to me.
How old are you when you bought this horse?
Probably 9, 10, 11.
Really?
12 years old. Yeah.
So you've been motivated
yes,
maybe literally from day one at this point. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah.
So you save up.
Barn work is not easy.
No.
I was like, I'm like a scrawny little kid, and, I used to literally clean out chicken coops and,
wow.
Like the stalls. If she would go on vacation, I would help take care of the horses, make sure they got fed and all those kind of things. But I loved it. I was happy. I loved every minute of it. But I think that's where it instilled, if you work hard for something, you can earn something. Because when that happened, I was a little kid. Like that was a dream come true. And we would go horseback riding all the time. And I had a great childhood. So that influenced that for a long time. And then I did get involved in sports. Like I started with softball. And then as I went into high school, volleyball, basketball, ran track. And then that's when, at that time, my schedule got busy, because when you're involved in sports, I wasn't spending as much time at the barn. So we ended up, there was a lady at church who we sold my horse to. She had young daughters, and it kind of worked out perfect. But then I got heavily involved in sports. And volleyball and basketball were kind of 50-50 for a long time. But then as I got closer to my junior and senior year, then I made a decision, okay, I want to play volleyball in college. Growing up, I knew that there was no money for college, that was pretty clear.
So I want to go back before we get to college first, because to be a 9-year-old that has enough foresight to, I need to work so that I can purchase this horse. I mean, I know that I have you have daughters. I have daughters. I don't know if they've ever, that mine are older than 9 now. They definitely didn't work to buy a horse at the age of 9. So that's a pretty remarkable thing. And then once you bought the horse, I don't want to skip over this, because boarding a horse is expensive as well. Right. So you buy it, but then you got to take care of it, and you got to feed it, and you got to shoe it, and you got to make sure it's taken care of, and shots and all that stuff. So in this time frame, before you get into competitive sports, are you working at the barn to cover that cost as well? So what is
almost every day.
So where does this come from? Is this just internally who you are? Is it seeing your dad as a hard worker and kind of growing up through that and early on? Because I'm sure this is an experience that you come back to later in life.
I'm not sure what it was. I mean, I loved it. That was my thing. I would get home from school and I would walk over there. Yeah. And just that was, and it, I enjoyed it. I loved it. And, it was hard work, but, I knew we didn't have the money for, boarding a horse and all these kind of things. So she's like, if you help me, you can just keep your horse. And she, we had a great relationship.
Right.
She loved that she had little kids. And as I got older, I would babysit her kids and stuff. Like it was a second family.
Yeah.
But I just had my mindset on, like I wanted a horse and I wanted that to be my lifestyle. And I was fine working for it.
Yeah.
So.
Which is something that people maybe come to realize much later on in life. And here you are.
Think that's where it started.
Yeah. Yeah.
I honestly think, where my work ethic started.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. So now let's get into more of the competitive sports. Was there a moment where you thought, okay, I might be able to go do this at the next level in college? Like you said, there wasn't a college fund or a trust fund or anything. So when did you start seeing the sports as maybe a path to get you to somewhere that you wanted to be?
Probably my sophomore year, maybe it was the summer between my freshman and sophomore. I was obsessed with sports. I loved it. I was always at the gym. I was you see these kids, they always have basketballs in their hand.
Yeah.
Well, that was me. I'd always have a volleyball. Like we had a part of our house was a brick. It was brick. And I would be outside like in the evenings, just like hitting the ball against the wall. Like that was what I did all the time.
Yeah.
And then obviously I'm tall.
Yeah.
So everybody kind of stopped growing and I just kept growing. And all of a sudden, I'm like the tallest in the grade.
Are your parents tall?
My dad's 6'4",
okay,
and my mom's 5'7". So I got it from my dad's side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. Hopefully my girls are tall, but between my freshman and sophomore, I went to a bunch of summer camps and I put the work in, in between off season. And then I joined club teams. And then that's when I was like, okay, I loved it. And, I could see that I was getting better at it. And my mom, and I think that this is a huge influence on my life. Like my parents have always been unbelievably supportive and just speaking affirmations. And my mom was like, you're going to get a full ride. Like you're going to get a full ride scholarship. Obviously we can't pay for it, but you're good enough. Like this is going to happen for you. And so I just believed what she was telling me. And so I'm like, all right. So we would do these I would be in all the clubs and we would go to Baltimore and Las Vegas, Orlando, traveling for volleyball. And then my junior year, or after, I don't know when it was exactly, but it was during my junior year. My ultimate goal, I wanted to play at Penn State, even though I lived in Ohio. But Penn State had a really good volleyball team. The coach there was one of the most winningest coaches. I had a lot of respect for that program, and I would go to their summer camps. And so that was my ultimate goal. But my junior year, I went to another summer camp at Hofstra University.
Okay.
And at the very end, the coaches pulled me aside and they offered me basically a full ride scholarship. We'll pay for everything, your meals, everything. And I was like, okay. I was like, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
Where do I sign?
Yeah.
So I wasn't.
So you did this as a junior.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. So as a junior, I knew it, which was so nice because once you know where you're going and all that's taken care of, like I really got to enjoy my senior year. So
Penn State wasn't going to pull that same thing. What was the decision making between those?
So Penn State, I would have gotten a partial scholarship and I probably wouldn't have played as much my freshman and maybe sophomore year but I wanted to play.
Yeah.
I'm wired with sports that like when I was on the bench, I was unhappy. Like I wanted to be in every single game, playing the entire time. And that's just how I'm wired. So with Hofstra, it's
no breaks, no rest. I'm not taking a water break.
Yeah, no. And so with Hofstra, it's a smaller D1 school. So, I started my freshman year. I played all 4 years. I played every single game and I loved it. So it worked out. And with the financial end of things, I think growing up with the whole budgeting thing and just knowing I'm like, why would I choose, like as much as Penn State is more like, elite situation as far as, playing at Penn State and all of that. At the end of the day, like I want a degree and I want it paid for and I want, So I was like the first school that offered that to me. I'm like, all right. And Hofstra's a great program. They also, my coach at the time, Fran, she was the most winningest active coach. And
In the NCAA? Or there?
One of them, yes. Yeah. And it was a phenomenal program. We ended up winning our conference. So we were a part of the Colonial Athletic Association. Okay. And we won it in 2007. And had really good seasons. I loved my teammates. I mean, it was awesome. Yeah. I had a really good college experience with it all. And then ironically, we won our conference. We went to the NCAA tournament. We played at Penn State.
Really?
Yeah, we went to the second round. The first round, we beat Cornell. Second round, we played Penn State, which is just interesting because, I wanted to play there, And it was an amazing experience. We played Penn State at Penn State. It was televised. It was just it's just a very cool experience to be able to do that. We did not win. We ended up, I think, 30th out of, that
Still
year.
Fantastic.
Had we beat Penn State, we would have been in the Sweet 16. So that was my college experience.
Well, okay, but Hofstra is still, that's an expense. That's a private school in New York, right on Long Island. Mm-hmm. And it's an expensive school. It's hard to get into, right? I mean, it's kind of an elite school. Yeah. So to have the opportunity to go there and to go there on a full ride and be able to graduate from that school, have those experiences and be completely debt free, is huge, right? So, did you feel during that time in college, like I need to work harder to kind of continue to earn or honor that you had received, or where is there a work ethic going on in the background, or what's propelling you to this level of success?
Very much so. Like my coach, she would say, we're paying for your school, so this is your full-time job. Like this is so. I mean, so we had our whole team had that understanding, and I was just very dedicated. I mean, I loved volleyball. I had so much fun. It was work, but I enjoyed working out. I enjoyed, I mean, there were times where in practice, sometimes, you'd be like, how much longer is this season? But, because you'd want to break. But, right. But overall, I really enjoyed it. And we would have workouts. And so my setter, she's absolutely amazing, great friends, but she was an All-American. She's extremely talented. And something like early on, because we were the same year, like we were freshmen together. We went through all 4 years together. And something she had mentioned my freshman year, she was like, I always try to just do like one more of like whatever the workout is or whatever. And that stuck with me. So like we would get these workouts, like going into fall camp, you'd have to obviously stay in shape through the summer. And I was so disciplined. I would do every single workout to the T. And I would do it and I would like add to it. So like, let's say we would do circuit training was huge, but we would do, 3 reps of 10 or 3 reps of 12, or 3 circuits of 10 to 12, but I would end up doing 15, like every single time. And me, her, and a couple people on the team, like we would go into fall camp and we were just so fixated of like, we're going to win the conference and we're going to be the best. And when you're surrounded by people who are like also like-minded, it helps,
Yeah, sure.
So,
but it's also, you're not just showing up. You could take it from the perspective, I'm sure some people had, I put in all this work in high school. I've got the full ride scholarship. I've arrived. I'm here. I've got that. They saw the talent, right? So I'm good. But you talk about how you guys made it to the NCAA tournament, how well that you guys did. You won your conference. How much of that do you attribute to the freshman year, sophomore, junior year, showing up, let's do 3 more every time, right? Eventually those 3 more every time adds up and is the difference, right? It's not the natural skill, it's the willingness to go above and beyond that created this team culture, really, that helped you guys succeed?
Yeah, I'm very competitive.
I had no idea.
Yes. And so on my team, there were I was a middle hitter. There were 3 of us. And, to start, there's only 2 middles that get to start.
Yeah.
So like I was willing to outwork. And I learned early on that people always try to cut corners, and I think that, but I see it. I'm like, that's what hurts people is like, there's no easy way. You just
and it's a decision though. You're making the decision to cut corners.
Yes. Or take the easy route. Yeah. And it's like,
and you can make a decision not to.
Yeah. But I think I did learn early on that like, if you want to accomplish something or be the best, like I think I shared, I'm competitive, but also like I always had the target of like, I want to be the absolute best in whatever I'm doing. So it's like, in order to be the best, you can't cut corners. You can't take the easy route. I mean, that's just not going to happen. But you see other people do it and you see how that hurts them.
Yeah.
And then I don't know why, but that like kind of drives me. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a leg up. And then it's easier once you see the progress to keep it going, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes sense. And, even you talk about seeing people cut corners and then you don't. And a lot of people don't realize this. You guys are there at the same time, right? So in other words, you can choose to not cut the corner or you can choose to cut the corner. You're still going to be there, but you're still in that, but you're still at that workout. You're still at that practice. And it's that battle in the mind of, I'm not going to cut that corner and you're going to be there anyway. You might as well get something from it. Right. And so, that I think that just adds and propels and is what created a lot of that success for you.
Mm-hmm. So. And then you gain momentum. And like I said, once you see the progress, it's just easier to keep it going.
Yeah.
It's
awesome. So did you work in college or you said this was your full-time job was volleyball and being in the best shape you could be to compete?
Yep. In season, I didn't work, but once like fall season and spring season, we were off. I mean, although we'd still had practices and stuff, workouts and all of that, but I worked sports facilities in college. And then I did work for a restaurant.
Okay.
Yeah. And I was a waitress just to earn like extra money and stuff like that.
Yep. Mm-hmm. So once this was coming to an end, what were you thinking about? Like, okay, what's life going to be? You're in New York, right? You're near New York City, right? What are you wanting to do next after college?
Well, I think, playing athletics in college, I got to travel a lot, you got to travel all over the United States. And I knew, I'm like, I didn't want to be back in Ohio. Like, I'm like, wow, the world is huge and there's just so much. And then being in New York City, it just opens up your eyes to like, oh my gosh,
You're from a small town in Ohio, right? Yeah.
Farmhand. Yeah. And I mean, I was definitely out of my element, especially Long Island. If you ever, met Long Island, New Jersey, it's just completely different than Ohio. It's like amazing. But I wanted to live in the city, so after I graduated, that was the plan. I wanted to live in New York City, experience that life. So I graduated, my degrees in public relations and communications. Yep. My senior year, I had, a teacher, and she was amazing, but she was the head PR for NASDAQ in the city.
Wow.
It was just I loved that class and I'm like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to just be like the top of PR somewhere. Yeah. So when I graduated, I started, you put your resume out and all of this and quickly realized, I'm like, oh God, you have to start at the bottom. It's not like,
It's not going to be the head PR straight out of college.
Yeah, which I understood. I'm like, all right, that's fine, but it just wasn't as like glamorous as, what my perception originally was. And starting salaries, I mean, it was like living in New York City, the cost of living is so high. Right. And so I'm always like money conscious, and maybe it's how I grew up or whatever, but I was like, I'm going to be trapped, like I'll have a salary maybe, but it's all going to go towards rent. And like, how am I going to even live? Like it didn't make any sense to me financially. So then somebody was like, you can make a lot more money in sales. Like you have a great personality. Like sales is, there's just a lot of opportunity there. So I'm like, all right, I'm going to try that. Let me like broaden my horizon and see if maybe I can do like medical sales, pharmaceuticals. I mean, I didn't really know. I was kind of just open to it. Basically.
Well, those are, when you think of sales, the pharmaceutical sales, kind of is the one that, they make a lot of money. There's, there's a lot of travel. It's kind of.
Yeah. You think, the percent, it's like, okay, that seems like a great path.
Mm-hmm.
So I changed my resume and put that out there. And then I interviewed at a couple places. And I remember interviewing, and it was like I was living on campus, so living at Hofstra, and then I would take a train into the city. And then, when you're walking in the city and you go up to these the skyscrapers and stuff, it's just an amazing experience just doing that. So I had a couple interviews in the city, did that. And I remember, and I don't even know what they did. I don't remember at all at this point, but I remember the guy interviewing me, and he was like, basically, why should I hire you?
Mm-hmm.
And which is your opportunity to sell yourself and all this, in the interview. But at the time I didn't know,
I don't know.
And I remember him basically shutting me down pretty hardcore. Like, no, I don't think that you're cut out for this at all. And I remember leaving that interview being like, you have no idea, like, my work ethic and like what I'm capable of and like how coachable I would be and like all these things.
Yeah.
And it like...
You don't know who you're saying no to.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, well, then I don't want to work there anyways, type thing. And
we need to find that guy and have him listen to this podcast, right?
I know. I can see the room. I can see like I don't remember the name of the company. I don't remember anything, but I just remembered how he made me feel like at the end. And I was like, all right, I'm going to show that guy, basically. And so... a
chip on your shoulder. Almost.
Yeah. And at this point, I had to move back home because this was the summer after I had graduated. So I'm like, all right, I'll move back to Ohio, save money. And then my whole goal was to go back to the city. Like I was like, all right, I'm going to move back to New York, maybe in a year or whatever, because I could save up money or whatever, living at home. So I moved back home to Ohio, and I start putting out my resume. And then Globe Life American Income actually found my resume and contacted me. And the interview was over an hour away, and I set it up. And I even remember Jen, who booked my interview and everything, went up there. And I remember...
This is in Cleveland?
Yes, the Cleveland office. A very, very... So at that time, they, basically one of the number one offices in the entire company. Yeah. Didn't know that at the time. But I was sitting there in the waiting room ready for my interview, and I just see all these like sharp young professionals like high-fiving each other, smiles on their faces, walking in and out of offices. And and then pulling into the parking lot, there's like nice cars. Yeah. And I'm like, wow, whatever they're doing here. I mean, I didn't know American Income. I'm like, I don't even know what they're doing here. Yeah. I have no idea. But I'm sitting there and I'm like, they're successful. Like, I can just tell. Yeah. My intuition's like, whatever they're doing and they love doing it, I'm like, I just want to be a part of this. So I already knew I wanted to work there just from like my perception.
Well, okay, so let's just pause there, because what you're saying is we're talking about the importance of culture, the law of attraction, right? Creating an environment that people want to be a part of. And, I know once we get to kind of your story as being an agency owner now, you can see how valuable that is, right? And having a culture that is positive, that is uplifting, that people are excited to be around, and how that's something that, it draws you to it.
It's crucial.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so very, very important that people like where they work and are happy and, enjoy who they're working with, and there's no tension and like, all that kind of stuff. But I could just tell, like, sitting there. And so my interview, the AD, MGA at the time, that interviewed me, did a great job with the takeaway and everything. And I was like, I knew I wanted to work there. And I think I did a better job of obviously selling myself and saying I'm a good candidate. But I went through like the whole career overview. And at that time, they had us at the end stand up and basically say why they should hire us and everything. Wow. And I remember doing that. And then I got the call back to come back for the final. And I wanted it so bad. And I remember the AD, offering me the position. I'm like, yes, let's do this. And my parents were so supportive. Like at that point, then I'm like, obviously I'm like, oh, I'm going to do insurance. Like I'm going to be in insurance. I'm going to sell life insurance, I guess, and these are some great people. And I was just so bought into like, all right, I just want to be a part of whatever they're doing. I'm going to contribute to it.
So you go from 4-year full ride to Hofstra University, and now you're going to sell insurance 100% commission.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And my parents were extremely supportive.
That's great.
Yeah. Like when I was doing my testing, cause I had to, you get to get the license first. And my mom's like, you're going to do so good. Like and my dad, he was like, there was a guy at the shop. He used to like clean out the cars. He like would do the detail after we would fix the cars or whatever. Like this young kid, he's like, he left the shop and he got an insurance and he came by and he's like driving like a Aston Martin or like a Maserati. And I'm like, he's making way more money than I am. I'm like, he's like, you're going to do great there. Like there's a lot of money.
Person also at the office? Is that?
No, I don't even know. Like, yeah. But I remember when I was doing my life, he would tell me that. And just, I think that's important, having support.
Yeah.
I feel for people who don't have, like, they're not surrounded by people who are feeding into like, hey, you can do good and all these things. Because like, I look back and I'm like, I was very blessed that I didn't have that. Like I did have support. And I think that made a world of a difference. And I just came in and I wanted to, kind of apply what I learned in sports. I was like, all right, I'm going to be the best at this.
Yeah.
And so the story gets interesting. So somebody I went to high school with also got hired there. And I find out that Jameson Weatherspoon, who's a very successful agency owner in Atlanta for American Income, it was when he first got promoted to an SA, I was his first agent. And at that time, he was a top producer in that Cleveland office. And so I was talking to my friend that also got hired. And I was like, oh yeah, I heard Jameson's going to train me. And he goes, do you know he's like the top producer in the office? And I was like, oh God. I'm like, really? They're putting me with him? And in my mind, I was like, oh, like the imposter syndrome a little bit. Like, oh, they must think I'm only going to do really, really good. They're putting me with like the best in the office. And so at that moment, I was like, all right, I've got to play up to that.
Yeah. Like this is where that 3 more, that mindset.
Yes. I was like, all right, I got to step it up. Like whatever they tell me, I better just do it to a T and like not take this opportunity for granted. And I appreciate Jameson so much because he took the time. I remember sitting in an office and like trying to get verbatim on the presentation. And like, if I said the out of place, he would be like, back up, do that sentence again. And like, we would like to get me like perfect on. And back then we had to memorize like a 5-page whole presentation. Cause this was the individual side. This is when we would go to how, my first 8 years in this industry, I did individual.
Yeah.
Yeah. And going to people's homes and have hilarious stories from doing it. And I love it. I loved it at the time.
Yeah.
We would come back to the office and, just you laugh at what people would tell you and like, just, but then you're helping, blue collar, which is like my type of people growing up in a blue collared family and like, just doing something that, people need and you're helping them protect everything that they're working hard for. Like I liked it.
Yeah. So what was that, your first couple months in the business? Obviously you took this mindset of having to work for something, right? And go above and beyond into your training, into learning the scripts, into learning the systems and processes and things that create the success. What were your first couple weeks, couple months like in the business on your own?
So we had standards in that office, like, 8 appointments a day. I think it was 15 presentations a week, 2,200 annual premium is like the standard. Like you follow this formula. But I would always book 10 appointments. And then I learned like there were certain, like referrals and stuff that would no-show you more. So I would double book, but you have to be very, I was very strategic in my schedule. But in the beginning, I struggled like anybody else, trying to figure it out, find my own style with it. But I did quickly realize that I outworked people because I'm like, the standard's 8 and 8, as far as appointments, but people would go in the field with 6 or 4. And I'm like, why would you go set yourself up for, like, you're not going to have success if you're just, and, we would do these call clinics, but then I would see people, it's not fun, but like, you're dedicating that time anyways. Why not just do what you need to do to make sure when you're out there, you're having success?
This is going back to those workouts where some people are cutting corners and then some people are going above and beyond. You're still there. You're going to be here, right? You cut a corner and maybe not make as many calls, not book as many appointments. and set yourself up for a challenge, or you're already here. Let's work. Let's go and try to get the result, and then don't stop. Go above and beyond.
Yep. And I would always shoot for 5 presentations a day. Like if I was in the field, and even if my appointments didn't work out, I would knock on doors, like drive out. I actually would like the places that were like hard to find, like the houses. Like if your Jeep,
they're not getting a lot of people.
We had TomToms.
Stuck to the window, right?
It would get me on the street. I'd be like way down, and then I'd have to zoom in on the mailboxes to try to figure it out. And but if I would be out in the country.
Yeah.
And so like some of these places would be really hard to find.
I had a little spotlight.
But those are the ones I liked, because I was like, all right, nobody else is going to finish finding this house. But I'm like, so I'm going to find this house. And it worked for me. And I would always have.
And they'd be like, oh, you found me. Right. I had a little spotlight that you would plug into the cigarette lighter, and then you could, back in the car that had a cigarette lighter is how long ago this was. And you could shine it out and you look like a cop. You try to put it by the, the mirror, and they'd be more receptive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I, for the most part, would get 5 presentations a day, and I was like determined to get that. And I remember, and so from the beginning, I pretty much was very consistent. I would enroll somebody at least once a day, and I was fine. It was very consistent. I had, I kind of found my groove with it. But I remember, being on Jameson's team, I remember one day I only had I don't know if I had 3 or 4. I couldn't get the 5th, and I blanked. It was the first time I blanked in a really long time. And he goes, you blanked because you didn't get to 5. And I'm like, yeah, I know that. And he was right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then I remember I was like, all right, well, I'm never going to let that happen again. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you start experiencing success. You move into leadership. What's your experience like in leadership?
So I ended up being a top producer. I got President's Club my first 3 years. And I was very focused on production. So I became a supervisor, GA, and then, eventually MGA, AD. Yeah. And the supervisor GA was okay, but when I became an MGA AD for the first time, I made a lot of mistakes. And I was very I knew when I had people on my team, and I had very, 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 very high expectations. And if they didn't play up to that, I didn't do a very good job of allowing people to basically be themselves. And, not everybody's going to be the best of the best of the best.
You're holding them to your standard.
Yes.
Not realizing that not everybody's you.
Yes. And I struggled with that. I lost sleep over it. I would for a while, and it overwhelmed me because I'm in my 20s. I was 22 when I started. So this was I might have been 23, probably 24 at the time.
Yeah.
And I'm leading a team, and I'm going at 1,000 miles an hour. And then, but I was also focused way too much on personal production and what I could do and versus delegating. You learn these things in leadership. And so I was a MGA AD for a while, and then I decided to step down because I was like, you know what? I can't manage people. This is too much, I can't lead people. I'm just going to go back and just worry about myself. And so I did. I stepped all the way back down. I just wanted to be an agent. And I did that for probably 3-4 months. And man, did I get lonely. Yeah. Cause when you're in leadership, especially on the individual side, we would get to the office at 8 a.m. and we would do hiring and recruiting. I'm trying to build my team. And then you'd go in the field, and I'd be in the field till 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock at night. And I wake up and do that, 5 days a week. I always looked forward to Saturday nights. I'm like, all right. 'Cause I was in my 20s. So I was like, all right, Saturday night, we're going out. We're doing it, but I worked hard through those, I was surrounded by great people. The office was, cause it was one of the
culture.
It was the culture. Yeah. I worked hard. I worked long hours, but we were trying to accomplish something. We had, and so it just makes it a lot easier when you're doing that. But
and this is about the time where I first meet you. This is probably 2010, 2011, somewhere in there. And my role, I was basically a trainer for American Income and the individual market. And we were rolling out the laptop presentation. Because you mentioned before, back in the day, like were the grandparents talking about, uphill in the snow, right? But, we had the 5-page script and the rate book, and you had to write everything out. And,
we had a rate book.
We had a flip book and everything. I mean, you had to get a calculator.
Wrote everything.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so we created a laptop presentation. We joke around as like it's 2010. We're finally joining the 90s. And here we are. And so I was traveling around rolling out the laptop presentation, which is important to your career path. And I go out in the field with you. Mm-hmm. And that's where I kind of first saw this work ethic. But there was, I think it was a funny experience, if you want to talk about that.
Yeah.
I think it was your first, like, this is your moment to shine that you've now learned the laptop.
We were cross pitching because I remember we did a couple presentations that day, but I think this was the last one because it was dark, definitely dark when we left. But we went to this house, and I think it was a referral, and they had like a done basement. Like the basement was real nice and fancy, and they had a big, huge, like, it was either a big screen TV or like a projector on a screen.
Yeah.
And so we're down there, and I forget what I had I don't know if I had it on a table or whatever, but they had like couches. And so you're sitting on the couch, they're sitting on a couch all comfortable, and I'm sitting probably on an ottoman, and I start the laptop presentation, and the guy goes, "Oh, well, do you just want to like put that on the projector?" I'm like, well, yeah, sure. So he like plugged something into my computer and ended up doing the laptop. I had this big screen.
It's huge right here, right?
I'm trying to show off for Mike, and he's sitting on the couch, and he's like, it's a recliner. I popped the thing.
I'm like,
yeah. And he's like over there, like eating popcorn practically. And I had the presentation up, and I did it, and it was just so funny because it was just not the normal, but we did end up enrolling them.
Sold it, yeah.
Yeah, we did, both of them, in life insurance. And then at the end, we were driving back. I'm like, see, that's how you do it.
That's right. Just bring your own home theater system to everywhere. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Yeah.
So so from that point, you did take a step back because you wanted to focus on kind of personal production, the frustration of other people, really, and not playing at that level. And then you get like, it's not the same anymore. You're not connected. I got
bored.
Yeah.
Because when you're all by yourself, I wasn't connected to like what was happening with the teams. And, I was just worried about myself. And it was nice, I mean, I did get to sleep in and then like head to the field later in the afternoon and all that. There's perks to that. Yeah. But after a while, I was just like, man, it got boring, I'll be honest. It wasn't as exciting. And so I think I needed that break to appreciate the I don't want to say chaos when you're building a team, but just the
process, the grind.
I was like, man, I just want to get back. Like I miss it, and I'm like, and then I had plenty of time to think about like the mistakes I made and what could I have controlled and like done differently with certain people on the team. And, and then I'm like, at that point, because I did have more time on my hands, I started like looking into leadership books and like listening, to anything YouTube, at the time or whatever, on leadership. And then I just realized, wow, it's not about me, it's about them. Like just bring out the best in other people and like let them find their own path and just kind of lead them. Yeah. Like pull them, not push them, and I just had a lot of realizations. So then I jumped back into leadership. And then that's when...
so that's how we start the transition to Liberty, basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So I started out as a GA, and then I moved back up into that AD role again. But then that's when 2 people from my office joined your team. Mm-hmm. And I'm in my 20s and like no kids, I'm not married. And I'm like... And I was like, they're traveling the country, and getting to roll this out and see all the other offices. And I just loved the idea of that. So I remember I emailed Dom. Yeah. And I'm like, look, like I'd be open to this. I don't know if you're hiring anymore. So I kind of put my name in the hat. And then that's when, I don't know if you visited again. I'm not really sure
I probably came back out. Yeah. And we went back in the field and
And then I was like, I want to do that. I want to travel and experience. So it was just that time of my life where I just was ready for something different.
Yeah.
And so I was all about it.
Well, and timing is everything here too. So part of this story is being ready for opportunities before they present themselves, not waiting for the opportunity, because you did not know this at that time. Liberty National was going through a challenging period, right? The company was not doing well. It was underperforming. It was not profitable, which is always not a good thing. And, Globe Life was trying to figure out what's the direction. And the solution was take the CEO from American Income and make him the CEO of Liberty National. That was Roger Smith.
Yeah.
They brought Steve DiCharlo in, who was an agency owner at American Income, and put him in as the executive vice president. And the two of them took this company that is now, a big part of our lives, and said, we're gonna change it. We're gonna build it in the model of success that we've seen at American Income. And so you talk about the timing. I'm put into a role now where I'm over both companies for the needs-based sales, for the individual market. And you just raise your hand and say, hey, are you guys looking? Well, again, you didn't know.
No.
I'm trying to find people that I can come over to Liberty that know the system that can help us roll this out to this whole company. So, being ready ahead of time for that opportunity. I mean, that the timing of all of that, when you really think about it, that leads you down this path to become an agency owner. So we hired you in this building, right? Brought you in. It was probably like 5 or 6 months at American Income.
Yeah.
And then I pitched you on switching.
Yes. It was at the end of the year conversations.
Yeah.
And I had no idea anything about Liberty. I have no idea, but I was open. I was just kind of like, okay, yeah, we're going to roll out systems.
Yeah.
Sound good to me, let's do it. So
yeah. That was the timing of all of that. We spent 5 weeks in New York City. I'm sure you remember that, right? We had the whole team there, and we were rolling out the laptop to the agencies, the two agencies in New York City. And then we had Christmas break, and then we went to Birmingham, Alabama, right?
Yes.
And now we are in Liberty. We went from New York to Alabama, and
culture shock.
A little bit of culture change. Yeah, right? Right?
Yeah.
So, but you took it and you ran with it. So then, let's talk about that progression. Now you're a home office, you're a trainer. When did it start to say, hey, I maybe want to get back into the field and I want to start seeing what this opportunity looks like?
So keep in mind, I'm in my 20s at the time. And, I was single getting into the laptop trainer deal, but then I did meet my husband. And so I did the trainer. It was almost 4 years. And I loved it. Like, it was such a blessing because I got to meet, most of the AOs and, and work with them. And, they made a huge impact on me, and I was trying to, help them as much as possible. So I loved that. But then I met Chuck, my husband, and,
how'd you meet Chuck?
So running kind of connected us. So after I got done with volleyball, I guess I'm retired. Just to stay active, fitness has always been a part of my life. So I got into running, and my husband, he just takes it to another level. He did ultras.
Oh, wow.
So he's done 50Ks and all kinds of crazy stuff. So, it was on my bucket list. I always wanted to run a marathon. And so, at that time, I was trying to recruit people for a Tough Mudder team. If anybody's done a Tough Mudder. Yeah. It's an obstacle course race. It's really fun. And so I reached out because he was training for an ultra, and I was like, hey, I know this is really random, but would you be interested in doing this Tough Mudder? And he said no. He's like, I don't do obstacle course races. I just run. And I'm like, well, and then, but, that's how we initiated the conversation. Okay. And then he was basically like, are you signed up for any other races? And then. This
is like online you're talking?
Yes. Or, Facebook actually connected us.
Okay.
We went to high school together, never spoke.
Really?
Yes. No recollection of him in high school at all, actually. I don't know. We were in a rural area. It was a public school, and I graduated with over 500 people. And so, you didn't know everybody, and you're great, but he was a grade above. Ironically, he grew up 4.5 miles from where I grew up. And we never spoke, nothing.
Wow.
He went to the Ohio State and I went to Hofstra, and then we both started our careers. But this was back in like, when Facebook was all colleges.
Yeah.
And then you would connect with people in your high school. So somehow we were friends. So I reached out to him to try to recruit him for this Tough Mudder team. And then that's how we...
Has he ever done a Tough Mudder since, or he refuses to do it?
But he did run my very first marathon with me by my side the whole time.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. And that was kind of our dating thing. Like he got me on a training schedule and like we did it together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of meeting Chuck and moving into that path of your life is what said, hey, I need to get into the field again?
Yes. So, I kind of knew, I'm like, I wanted to marry him.
Yeah.
And so, my path with corporate for a while was like, oh, I want to be a director and like maybe a VP and like, and maybe run the entire individual side. Like that was kind of a goal for a while there. But then when I met Chuck, I'm knocking on 30 at this point. And then I was like, I definitely want to have a family. I want to have kids. And then, the path, not anything wrong with it. It was just a lot of traveling. And I'm like, I want to spend time with Chuck. And so at that time, his job was moving him to St. Louis. And that's when Tony DeFilippo took over the agency. It was like 2016.
Yeah.
And he incorporated Worksite. And so I was like, I could go back agency side. And I was always intrigued by Worksite because I was like, when you're sitting down with people at their coffee table, they talk about their benefits that they get through work, life insurance and stuff. And I'm like, man, that'd be cool just to like set up life insurance for everybody at their job, like just that makes sense. So anyways, I was intrigued by that. And so then when I found out that Tony was taking it over, I was like, well, I could go back agency side and work daytime hours, like 8 to 5 and like then have this like family life with Chuck. So that's kind of, I was like, you got to see where you want your life to go and how you, and so then I was like, all right, I think I'm going to go back agency side and just let me learn Worksite. And it just seemed exciting. I was
But you had not done anything Worksite.
Nope.
So you went from traveling around telling people how to do the individual market to now I'm going to go 100% commission in a market you had no idea.
Yep. Yeah.
Jump in.
Yeah. Yeah. Cause I knew I knew my skills. I could sell on the individual side and I'm like, how much different? You're creating need, right? You like, people need what we have. And so it's like, you just like, I'm sure the pitch is different or like, how you explain it to people is different, but I can learn it. And I learned it so I was just fine. I was open with it. And then, met Tony.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love Tony? My God, he's amazing. So I was like, and he had a satellite. He did have an agency director, but it was very small. It was a very, very tiny operation. And I'm like, let me help you grow this, come in as an agency director in Worksite and let's like build this deal. So that's what I did. So 2016, I don't know what month it was, like almost halfway through the year. Yeah, I moved to St. Louis and went back agency side. And then I knew nothing about, I was an agency director, knew nothing about Worksite, and I'm going to run a Worksite team.
So how did that work? How did you make that work?
So I asked for help. So like you guys, Mallory Schumacher actually came to the office for 2 solid weeks working with me. And at that time, it was me, Derek Feldman, who's an AD in Tony's office. Yeah. We had an office manager and maybe like one or two more people. That was how small the office was. But Mallory came and then I knew because I went around training on systems. I'm like, I just need to learn the system. Like, teach me the system. So she spent at least 2 solid weeks. I think she came back to visit after that
Follow
too. Up. Yeah. And then just...
But isn't it just the same, like, this is work ethic, right? Just teach me what to do and then just go do it and do it at that 3 more kind of mindset that you have, right? Just do 3 more.
Yeah. Like something, and I tell my people all the time is like, if you don't have the experience in something, which at that time I didn't, you have to make up for it with activity.
Yeah.
Like you'll get the experience by doing the activity. It's not overly complicated. It's simple. You know what I mean? If you keep it that simple. So, make up for it and that's what I did on the work side. I was like, all right, we need to, not 60 walk-ins. Let's do 80. Let's
just
make up
more.
for it.
And and if you apply yourself and if you plan, there's the time to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then look at the result.
Mm-hmm.
So when did the agency owner start to become, hey, this is maybe the path that I want to take?
So Chuck and I got married.
Yeah.
And then we started, it took me a while to get comfortable with worksite. I was not I was outside my comfort zone, but like I said, I was willing to learn it. And Tony's just, he's a great mentor and he was there every step of the way. And I started seeing progress with it. Well, during that time I was, I wanted to have a family. So then over the course of 6 years, I had 3 daughters. And then COVID hit. During COVID, that was no problem for me because I knew the individual side. And once we rolled out worksite, I was like, okay, not worksite, virtual. Once we rolled out the virtual, it was kind of very similar. So I think that was a strength for me during the COVID time. But once COVID was over, we really kind of exploded in St. Louis. We just really took off. And I had my last daughter. It was before that. I had my first 2 daughters, and then I was kind of very comfortable with, I think I was an RAD at the time and, just developing others. And I'm like, I want my own deal. I think I'm ready. For the longest time, I always want to be number 2. I didn't know if I wanted everything to be, but I loved being kind of Tony's right-hand person, basically. But then, it came a time where I was like, I can do this.
Sure.
I know I can do this. And so.
You're already doing it.
Yeah. And then I had my last daughter and then we decided, okay, we're done having kids. And
so how did that work, working in 100% commission industry and having 3 children in a 6-year time frame and growing and not stalling or regressing or feeling like you have to take a step out? How did you manage to do that?
It's your routine and your schedule, and I've learned something about myself. When I'm busy, I feel the healthiest, if that makes any sense.
Okay.
So you have to, when you have kids, it's good for them to be on a routine, eat dinner at the same time, go to bed at the same time. They know what to expect. And that gives, and it's the same thing as adults. If you have a healthy routine and once you have kids, you keep it as regimented as possible. And especially if you want to be successful in something, with work, when you're at work, when you're at home, be home, let work go. And then you just have a very successful schedule. And if you plan it out, you can do it both. You absolutely can.
What does your schedule look like? What did your schedule look like then to be able to go through that?
It's pretty similar to what it is now. So I love running. It's my time for me. I know some people absolutely hate it, but for me, I love it. It's just gets my energy out and I can think clearly. And I listen to podcasts.
How much do you run a day?
Right now I do 3 to 4 times a week, which is,
what distance when you're running? How
at least 5-6 miles. And then
3 to 4 times a week?
Yeah. But on the weekends I run between 10 and 16 miles. Yeah, I love
10 to 16 more miles than I run.
Yes, I'm a part of running groups. Running groups help, so I have.
Okay, so there's some accountability.
Yeah. Yes, on the weekends, I sometimes it's in Florida, I have to wake up at in the hot time. You want to run super early, so we'll meet at 6 a.m., 7 a.m. But I'm running with groups of people, and that's my social we talk about everything. We talk about work, their work, I love it. But it makes running the distance, you forget about time and it's just, but it's I love running because it's a mental challenge. You can always keep pushing yourself and then you surprise what you're actually capable of.
What are you saying to yourself in the mental challenge points to keep going? How do you get through those moments?
I'm going to laugh because, I implement what David Goggin talks about. You got to talk to yourself.
Yeah.
You have the doubt, you'll have those feelings of why am I doing this? Give up, all this kind of stuff. And then you're wait a minute. And you have to let that no, like you can do what you set your mind to and like overcome. And it's just in your mind. It's like a mental battle. And when you do that and you overcome it, you become stronger on this side.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of addicting because you're like, wow, let me see how far I can really push myself.
Yeah.
So that's why I enjoy it, to be honest. So my schedule is, 2 days a week, I wake up at 4:15 in the morning. You'll see my Strava, I'm out there very, very early.
Right.
But I have to run in the morning because like my nights, like I want to be with my kids. So I don't want to sacrifice time, like, as much as it stinks waking up. But when my alarm goes off, I'm like, it gets easier over time. But, when you're getting into it, you're like, just think like, okay, I'll have my evenings. And first thing in the morning, my energy is like the highest. So like I always feel, obviously getting out of bed's no fun, but I only do the super early 2 days a week. So that's not that hard. 3 days is like more normal. And then the other days I start at like 5:20 and then get myself ready. Then I make breakfast for the girls, get the girls up. They eat breakfast, get them ready. And then I drop them off, to daycare or school or whatever. And then I head to the office and then I work solid, 8 to 5. And
you're working.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was telling that while we were waiting to start this, I was like, man, when I get to the office, it's like, go, go, go. So I was like, just waiting around.
Yeah. It's kind of a little different here, right?
I'm like, I got 15 minutes. Okay. But yeah, so yeah, I work it. Like if you're at the office with me, like we're like busy. My schedule is, you got to get it done. And then,
but this is how you get through these obstacles. Sometimes these life events, having children or, even like challenging moments in somebody's life that can distract them, or having kids or finding time for yourself. Those can become obstacles, or they can become motivators, I guess, or, there's a way to find a path around it. And I think that's what you're showing here, is that there is a path through that, right?
It can be done.
Don't feel like, oh, I'm going to have a child, I need to take a step back from my business, or I don't know if I can play at that high level. Would you agree? You can't play at the high level in the same time that you're putting in right now. So we got to put in more time, or we have to be more creative with what we're doing. And, that's an example of, get up at 4 a.m. If you have to, if you really want it.
Yep.
Because look at what it's done.
Yep. Yeah. And I love having kids because, it gives you such a different purpose and why, for me, I really want to show my daughters that you can be a very successful businesswoman and be a phenomenal mom at the same time. Like you do not have to sacrifice one or the other. Like, I go through the same thing where my girls are like, oh, you have to go to work and all these things. And I'm like, look at our lifestyle and like, look at this beautiful house and like, you go to swim lessons and all these things. And I'm like, that's because mommy and daddy work really, really hard. My husband works really hard too. And I'm like, and I enjoy it. Like, like what I'm building at the agency, like this is mommy's, like, I really love seeing the team and it's worth it. And I'm like, and I am with my family. Like I do not, you don't sacrifice it all. I might not be at every little thing, or if they're in sports, I'm going to be at every single game. I might have to miss some. I'll be at all the important stuff, of course, but, when you're with your family and your kids, like I do shut business off. Like they will not let me be on the phone. Like they just, with 3 of them, they're all like, they're little. So they're just like, I'm just enjoying it because it's like all about mommy, but
wait till they get to be teenagers. So enjoy it right now.
I've heard.
They leave and come back. It's okay.
Yeah, I know. I'm not looking forward to that, but I don't know. That drives me because I just really want to show them that you can do it. Like anything you put your mind to. And don't get me wrong. Like my schedule, like I do work really, really hard. Like it is hard sometimes. And do I get tired? Yes. And like, do I wish, sometimes I can just like turn Netflix on and not, but also I see the progress I'm having on both sides, like, with my girls and the stuff they're doing. And then, the progress that I have, with the agency and all of that. And that just drives me. I'm like, you know, it just, you see the progress and then it just justifies, and then you start pushing your goals out even more.
What would you say your quote secret to success would be? Because you are very successful as an agency owner first year. Did you win your category?
I did.
You won your category? You
yes.
did. And so, yeah, absolutely.
Good job, team.
Yeah, there you go.
Yes.
So you'll be on stage your first year as an agency owner. You're going to receive an award. You'll be recognized in front of the whole company.
Now I got to keep that streak.
Now you got to keep it going. Right. Now I put the pressure on.
Started off right. So
right.
it's like.
So it seems like every level you've been able to rise the occasion. What's your quote secret to success?
I'm sure there's a lot. I think I'm just really big on people doubting themselves. Like when you feed your mind and you're so mentally tough and if people would just believe in themselves and quit doubting themselves and like being so scared they have to work hard and like, what if I waste time? And like, what if get all of that, you know, and I think, and we were talking, you know, like, I truly believe self-doubt is like the biggest weakness of mankind. And you see it in people and you're just like, if only you believed in yourself, like you're talented, like you have it. When I interview people, I'm like, I can tell who has it. And I'm just like.
And they don't always see it?
No.
Yeah.
And I'm like, just don't doubt yourself. And I think that's the part of the culture, why it's so important is that you got to surround yourself with people and be careful of the naysayers. Like, oh, you're doing what? And it's commission and like you're working how many hours? I remember somebody asking me like, this was back on the individual side, like how many hours a week do you work? I'm like, I'm not going to tell you because I don't want to hear your opinion.
Yeah.
You know, like, does it matter? Like I like what I'm doing and, you know, I'm trying to accomplish things. So it's like.
Shutting the negative out.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then I think just identifying when you do have that self-doubt, like in yourself and like what you're telling yourself. And don't get me wrong, I'm not like, I still have it to this day. Like I'll have days where I'm like, I have that negative, you know, but I catch it. And then I'm just
How do you overcome it?
I think it's because of feeding my mind with positive things. And like, I just have zero tolerance. Like I'm very impatient and even with that, you know, like, so I'm just like, no, you know, and I am I would add this to the secret is like, you set your mind to something, you put a goal out there and you just decide that like, I mean, I just decided like, hey, our agency is going to win our category. Like we're going to be the #1 startup agency. You know, you make that decision or whatever it is. It could be, you know, I'm going to be an agency director by the end of the year, whatever. It's got to be something you're willing to work for, though. Like, obviously, it's easy being like, oh, you know, I want to make $150,000. Oh, I want to do this. I want to do that. But you got to know yourself of like, are you willing to make the sacrifices? You know, like, because, you know, am I at every little thing, you know, for everybody? No, because I've got to be at work and heavily involved in the agency from 8 to 5. Like, and I'm not going to sacrifice that. And, you know, like, but you set your mind, you just decide and you don't lose sight of that. And you don't, and expect adversity, expect challenges, expect the hard work, you know, all of that is part of the process. You know what I mean? Like, so when it is hard, like, because I've had especially a first year agency owner, we had some crazy things happen through the year. Insane things that like, you're just like, wow, that just, you know, that's a huge challenge and adversity and like, wow, you know, but you just address it and then you overcome it and you just stay focused. And Roger Smith always would say like, don't have a plan B. I see this in people all the time too, is like, well, if only it works out, then I'll stay doing this. But, you know, here's my backup plan. Well, that's a really dangerous thing because you're going to be looking for every little thing that's like going to bother you to like jump ship. Yeah. And if you're always jumping ship, you're never going to accomplish anything. Like I've been with the company 16 years. Not every year has been completely perfect, you know, but it's just part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So. Great stuff. Well, Amanda, thank you so much for taking time. You know, it was funny. We were joking about how to make things work, letting things become an obstacle versus finding a way to make them work. And you had to find a way to make this work to even be here today, right? Because you've got some things that you're trying to figure out in your own life between Chuck's schedule and your schedule, and you made it work. And so I appreciate you doing that.
Thank you.
And being here, and everyone here to be able to hear your story and pouring into them. So much. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. We got one other piece, as you know, as a tradition on the Level Up Lifestyle, is we present you as our guest with a bobblehead.
Yay.
Unfortunately, I don't know, I'm sure you don't know this, but every year, I just learned, there is a international bobblehead producer convention.
For real?
There is.
Oh my goodness.
And when we tried to get yours made, they were at the convention but you can't go to another one because I guess they all go at the same time to protect their business. So it's on order. I mean, that's literally what happened.
I can't wait to see it.
I know. It looks great. It's going to be awesome. We'll ship it to your office. So let's just imagine, here's your bobblehead.
Thank you.
And we'll have to plan around that convention in the future. But one of the questions that we always ask is, your bobblehead's kind of like a representative of your journey and who you are today. If you were to go back in time, maybe in those moments of self-doubt, wherever you think that is, if that's learning who Jameson is, and now you're going to go on there, if that's having that interview with the person in New York that isn't giving you the time of day. And if you could take all the things that you know now and who you've become today, what would you go back in time and tell yourself in that kind of crossroads moment?
I would tell myself to envision the life that you want and just go after that, and don't care what people think, and don't doubt yourself, like we talked about, and just put in the work every single day and keep moving forward. And slowly but surely, it might not be in the time frame that you want, but you envision it, you put the work in, and slowly but surely you'll get there.
There you are.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you.
Thanks for joining us today. We hope this episode has inspired you on your path to success. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next story. See you soon on the Level Up Lifestyle Podcast.